There's something out there in those woods that doesn't want to be seen. And I know that now because it made sure I couldn't see it. I've been hunting wild boar in these backwoods for 15 years, and nothing, absolutely nothing, has ever made me drive home in the middle of the night shaking so bad I had to pull over twice. But that changed 3 weeks ago, and I haven't slept a full night since. It's a Thursday in late October. I'm out on the Mercer property, about 400 acres of dense pine and hardwood that backs up against a state forest. I've hunted this land since I was 17 years old. I know every trail, every deer stand, every creek crossing by heart. At night, that familiarity is the only thing that keeps you calm, because the dark out here isn't like city dark. It's total. It's thick. It presses against you like something alive. I park my truck at the usual pull-off, a wide gravel patch just off the county road, about 1.5 miles from the main tree line. I've got my rifle, my backpack, my hunting knife on my belt, and my spotlight. The spotlight is the centerpiece of the whole operation tonight. It's a handheld million-candle power beam, runs on a rechargeable battery pack, and it throws light so far and so clean that on a clear night you can read a license plate at 300 yards. I charged it for 6 hours before I left the house. The battery indicator is full green when I check it in the truck. I test the beam against the tree line, and it cuts the dark open like a blade. I head in around 9:15. The temperature is dropping, probably high 40s by now, and the wind is moving slow from the northwest, which is perfect. It carries my scent away from where the boar usually feed along the eastern brush line. My boots are quiet on the pine needle floor. I move slow. I know how to move through these woods without making noise, and tonight I am a ghost. By 10 o'clock, I've reached my primary position, a slight ridge overlooking a dried creek bed where the boar come down to root in the soft soil. I crouch against a pine tree, set the spotlight beside me, and wait. This is the part of hunting that non-hunters never understand. The waiting, the absolute stillness. You stop being a human being for a while and become something more like the forest itself. Your breathing slows. Your heartbeat drops. You start hearing things you never hear in normal life. The tiny scuttle of a mouse under leaves 30 feet away. The distant knocking of a woodpecker that's going to sleep restless. The creek bed below me, dry but still somehow whispering. Around 10:45 I hear them. Boar are not quiet animals. They grunt and root and snap branches, and they have absolutely no reason to be quiet because out here, nothing hunts them except us. There are at least 3 of them moving through the brush on the far side of the creek bed, maybe 60, 70 yards out. I can hear the heavy, wet snuffling, the percussion of hooves on hard ground, the crack of something being rooted up from the soil. I raise the spotlight. I keep my thumb on the switch. I want to wait until they move a little closer, until one of them steps into the clearing at the bend in the creek where the ground is open and the shot is clean. I wait. 40 seconds. A minute. The sounds are getting closer, and then there's the first shape materializing out of the dark, a large boar, probably 220 pounds, moving slow along the edge of the creek bed. I switch on the spotlight. Nothing. I click it again. Nothing. The beam does not fire. I look down at the unit and the battery indicator, which was solid green when I checked it 20 minutes ago, is completely dark. Not red. Not blinking. Dark. Like the battery has been removed. Like the unit is simply off in a way that should not be possible. I'm annoyed. I think it's a connection issue. Maybe the battery pack shifted. I take my thumb off the switch, grip the unit, and I'm about to tap the battery housing when I hear something. Not the boar. The boar have gone completely silent. That's the first thing that truly unsettles me, because boar don't go silent like that. Deer go silent. Deer freeze and listen and vanish. But boar are arrogant. They don't stop for anything. And every single sound from across that creek bed is just gone, snuffed out between 1 second and the next like someone put their hand over the mouth of the night. I stay very still. I'm listening so hard my jaw aches from clenching. The wind has died. The woodpecker has stopped. Even the distant road noise from the county highway, which you can usually just barely hear as a low hum, is gone. The silence is not natural. It is a specific kind of silence, the kind that means something else is present, something that everything else in these woods has decided to accommodate by shutting up. Then I smell it. I've been hunting long enough to know the smell of a kill site. Copper and wet earth and something rotten underneath. This smell is like that, but wrong, like a kill site that's been sitting in warm weather for a week, thick and almost sweet in a way that turns your stomach. It comes from directly behind me and slightly to my left, and it is close. Not 30 yards close. It is close the way a person standing beside you is close. I do not turn around. I don't know why I don't turn around. Every instinct in my body is telling me not to turn around, and I have been in the field long enough to trust my instincts more than my curiosity. I sit absolutely rigid with my back against the pine tree and I stare forward into the dark where I cannot see anything because my spotlight is dead, and I listen. For a long time, nothing. And then I hear breathing. It is not an animal breath. Animals have rhythms. They inhale and exhale in patterns tied to their size and their metabolism. This breathing is irregular, long and slow on the inhale, almost absent on the exhale, like something that doesn't fully need to breathe but is choosing to do it anyway. And it is no more than 10 feet behind me. I can feel the temperature change, like something large is displacing the cold air right at my back. My rifle is in my hands. My finger is nowhere near the trigger because I am a disciplined hunter and I know better than to fire at something I cannot see and cannot identify. But my hand moves to the knife on my belt, and I unsnap the retention strap as quietly as I have ever done anything in my life. The breathing continues. I make a decision. I am going to stand up, turn around, and use the rifle's scope to try to pull in whatever ambient light exists. It's a desperate move, but it's the only move I have. I shift my weight, begin to rise slowly, and the moment my boot scrapes the pine needle floor, the breathing stops. Complete silence again. I'm halfway to standing and I freeze there, crouched and ridiculous and terrified, and I wait. 5 seconds. 10. 20. And then from the darkness behind me and to the left there is a sound that I have spent 3 weeks trying to classify, and I still cannot do it. It is not a voice. It is not an animal call. It is something between the two, low and resonant and structured the way language is structured, like syllables, like meaning, but in no language that has ever been spoken by anything human. It lasts maybe 3 seconds, and then it's done. And then something touches my spotlight. I feel it. I feel the unit shift in my hand, a slight pressure on the body of the spotlight, like fingers closing around it from the other side. Someone is touching my spotlight from the other end. From the dark, I do not have my hand on that end of the unit. Whatever is touching it, I cannot see it, cannot feel its heat, cannot hear it move. But the spotlight shifts in my grip with the unmistakable, deliberate pressure of intention. And then the light comes on. Full beam, white and violent and absolute. And it fires out across the creek bed and into the trees beyond, and the light shows me nothing. The creek bed is empty. The brush line is empty. The boar are gone, and there is nothing in the beam, nothing in the clearing, nothing that could explain any of what just happened. I spin around. There is nothing behind me, but the pine tree I had been sitting against, the bark at exactly the height of my head, has a shape pressed into it that was not there before. Not carved, not scratched, pressed, like something leaned against that tree with tremendous weight and tremendous heat, because the shape in the bark is warm when I touch it with the back of my hand. Warm the way skin is warm, and the shape is not the shape of an animal. It is 2 handprints, side by side, fingers spread, pressed so deep into the pine bark that the resin has already begun to weep from the impressions like the tree is bleeding. I walk back to my truck in under 20 minutes. I have never moved that fast through dark woods in my life. I drive home. I pull over twice because my hands are shaking so badly I'm afraid I'll put the truck in a ditch. I sit in my driveway for a long time before I go inside. I went back to the ridge in daylight 2 days later. The handprints are still in that pine tree. The resin has hardened around them now like amber. And there are no tracks, no footprints, no sign of anything large having stood on that ridge. Whatever was there left no trace of itself on the ground. It left its trace only on the tree, only at the height of my head, only where it wanted to make sure I would understand. It had been close enough to reach me. It chose not to, and I think about that choice every single night. Story number 2. The last entry in that diary is dated 11 days ago, and in the last entry, he writes my name. My full name. The name my parents gave me. The name that appears on no social media profile, no public record, nothing that could be found without knowing me personally. He writes my name, and he writes what I was wearing the day I walked through the door of that room. And this man has been dead for 6 years. I do urban exploration, urbex, for those who don't know. I document abandoned places, factories, hospitals, schools, houses, whatever has been left behind and forgotten by the world. I've been doing it for 8 years. I've walked through hundreds of abandoned structures. I've seen things that unsettled me. A room full of children's shoes in an abandoned asylum. A hospital ward where every bed was made up fresh like the patients had just stepped out. A house where every clock was stopped at the same time. These things are strange. They're atmospheric, but they're explainable if you think hard enough. What I found in the building on Ashmore Street is not explainable. I've been trying for 11 days and I cannot explain it. The building is a 4-story office structure, built sometime in the early 1960s from the style of it, brick and steel-framed windows, in a part of the city that declined hard in the 90s and has been in a long, slow limbo since. It's surrounded by a chain-link fence that has a hole in it on the north side that I've known about for a year. I've been meaning to document this building for months. The windows are intact on the upper floors. The roof looks sound, and from what I can see from the street, the interior is largely preserved. Good subject. Safe structure. Straightforward job. I go in on a Saturday morning around 8, when the light is good for photography and the neighborhood is still quiet enough that nobody's going to notice me slipping through the fence. I'm carrying my camera, my wide-angle lens, my tripod, 2 flashlights, extra batteries, and a half-full thermos of coffee. Standard kit. I've done this hundreds of times. The ground floor is what you'd expect. Collapsed drop ceiling in places, water staining on the walls, a reception desk that's rotted down to its metal frame, old linoleum peeling up from the concrete beneath. The smell is mold and old paper, and that specific dusty sweetness that old buildings get when they've been sealed up long enough to develop their own internal climate. I take my shots methodically, moving room to room, staying away from the sections of floor that look compromised. The second floor is better preserved. Some of the offices still have furniture, filing cabinets, the occasional personal item left behind, a coffee mug, a wall calendar from 1994, a corkboard with a few papers still pinned to it. This is the good stuff. The archaeology of ordinary lives. I spend almost an hour on the second floor. The third floor is where things start to feel different. It's subtle at first. The air is different up here, denser somehow, and warmer than it should be. It's a cold morning outside, maybe 40 degrees, and the building has no heat source, so the upper floors should be colder than the ground level, not warmer. But stepping onto the third floor landing feels like stepping into a room where someone has been living, where the air has been breathed and circulated by a living body for a long time. I put it down to the building's specific thermodynamics. Old structures do weird things with air. I moved down the third floor corridor, which has doors on both sides, most of them open, most of the rooms behind them empty and unremarkable. About halfway down the corridor, there's a door that's closed. Just one. All the others are open, and this one is pulled completely shut. I photograph the corridor first. Then I go to the door. I try the handle, and it turns freely. No resistance, no lock engaged. I push it open. The room is perhaps 12 feet by 15. It has a single window that's been covered from inside with what looks like a moving blanket nailed across the frame. So the only light comes from my flashlight as I sweep it around the room. There is a metal desk in the center of the room. There is an office chair behind the desk. And on the desk, arranged with a precision that seems almost ceremonial, are stacks of books. Not scattered, not dumped, stacked. Neat columns of identical black composition notebooks, the kind you buy in packs at any office supply store, stacked in columns of 10 with no space between them, covering the entire surface of the desk. I count the columns. 14 columns. 14 stacks of 10 notebooks each. 140 notebooks. I pick up the top notebook from the nearest column and open it. The handwriting is small and extraordinarily regular, like someone trained in calligraphy. Each letter formed with precision, each line perfectly spaced. The first entry is dated in January of 1989. The writer does not give his name. He writes in first person, present tense, describing his day in a way that is detailed to the point of obsession. What he ate, what he saw from the window, what he thought about, the books he read, the things he heard in the building around him. He is living in this building. He moves into this room in January of 1989, and he is still writing. I flip forward through the notebook, then drop it and grab one from a different column, a later one. The handwriting is the same. The content is the same meticulous cataloging of days. He writes about the building changing around him over the years, about the other tenants leaving, about the building being emptied, about the silence getting deeper year by year. He writes about watching people from the window. He describes them with the same clinical precision he applies to everything. A woman who walks past every morning at 7:15. Two men who argue in the parking lot on a Tuesday. A group of teenagers who try the front door on a dare and run away laughing. He watches and he records, and he does not seem to feel that any of this is strange. I pull a notebook from near the bottom of the last column, the most recent stack. The handwriting here has changed slightly, not in quality, but in character. The letters are slightly larger, slightly more spaced, as though the writer's grip has changed, as though hands that were once steady have developed a slight tremor. The entries are the same. What he sees, what he thinks, what he hears. But now he is also writing about feeling watched himself. He writes about sensing a presence in the building, about sounds in the corridors at night, not vermin sounds, deliberate sounds, footsteps, the creak of weight on old floors. He writes about this with the same affectless precision he applies to everything, noting the dates and times of each occurrence, the duration, the direction. He doesn't seem frightened exactly, more like curious, the way a scientist is curious about an anomaly, interested in cataloging it even if he cannot explain it. And then I find the last notebook. It is on top of the final column. I open it, and the first entry is dated about 3 years before he would have died. According to the last entry I'll read in a moment, and he's writing about a decision he's made. He has decided to stay in this room permanently. He will not leave. This building is the only place that makes sense to him now. The world outside has become, in his words, too loud with other people's intentions, and he will stay where it is quiet. The entries grow shorter as the notebook progresses. Some days are a single sentence. The last several pages are dated in the fall of a year 6 years ago, and the entries on these pages are the shortest of all. Single observations. Single sentences about light and silence and the specific quality of time when nothing is happening. And then the last entry, dated in October 6 years ago. He writes that he knows he is going to die soon. He writes this simply, without drama, the way he writes everything. He says he is tired in a way that sleep does not touch. He says the building will keep his writing for as long as the building stands. He says he has always known that the writing would be found, that everything that is hidden is found eventually, and that whoever finds it will understand, in some deep part of themselves, what it felt like to watch the world from behind glass for 30 years. And then he writes one more line. I stare at that line for a long time in the cold yellow beam of my flashlight in that silent covered room. My name, my full name, both names exactly as they appear on my birth certificate, with no middle name, with the unusual spelling of my surname that I have spent my whole life correcting for people. And then a description of my jacket. A canvas field jacket, dark green, with a small tear in the left shoulder seam that I have been meaning to repair for 2 years. He writes, and this man died 6 years ago, that I will stand in this room reading this line and not understand. And that not understanding is fine. He writes that some things are not for understanding. Some things are only for witnessing. He writes that I should take the notebooks with me, because nobody else will come. He writes this in the present tense. He writes it as though he is watching me read it. I take 3 photographs of the last page with shaking hands. I do not take the notebooks. I tell myself it's because they're too heavy, because they're not mine to take, because some other reason that I can't quite name, but that has something to do with not wanting to carry this out of the building with me. I go back down the corridor. I go down the stairs. I go through the ground floor and out through the hole in the fence, and I walk back to where I parked my car, and I sit in it for a long time. I have not published the photographs from Ashmore Street. I've gone back once, in daylight, with a friend who I gave no information to beforehand, just asked him to come with me to a building I'd found. We went up to the 3rd floor. The room with the covered window was empty. Not disturbed, not cleared out, just empty. The desk was there. The chair was there. The notebooks were gone. I checked the building records afterward. A man had leased office space on the 3rd floor from 1988 until the building was foreclosed in 2003. He kept paying a storage fee for that office until his death 6 years ago. His full name is in the public record. I'm not going to say it here, but I will tell you that his first name, his given name, is the same as mine. Story number 3. Something grabbed my hand from below the water, and it held on. It did not let go until I stopped trying to pull away. And when I finally looked down through the dark water to see what was holding me, there was nothing there. But my hand, for 3 weeks afterward, had the marks of fingers pressed into the skin. 5 of them, longer than mine. And they were cold, those marks. They stayed cold for 3 weeks like something had changed the temperature inside my skin. I've been swimming in this lake since I was a kid. Reardon Lake, up in the hill country, about 2 hours from the city. My family had a cabin on the North Shore for 20 years before my parents sold it, and I've been driving up alone every summer since my early 20s. The lake is spring-fed, cold even in August, and most of the northern shore is undeveloped, public land that nobody much uses because there's no road access and the hiking path to the water is steep and rocky. On a weekday, I can have a quarter-mile of shoreline entirely to myself. That's why I go. It's a Wednesday in late July. I've driven up the night before, slept in my car at the trailhead because I couldn't get the cabin I usually rent, and I'm down at the water by 7 in the morning before the temperature reaches anything uncomfortable. The lake is perfect, flat as glass, the surface catching the early light in long horizontal bands, the tree line on the far shore still in shadow. There is not another person visible in any direction. I leave my shoes and my bag on a flat rock and I wade in. The water is cold the way this lake is always cold, an immediate full-body shock that makes you breathe hard for the first 30 seconds until your system adjusts, and then it becomes the best feeling in the world. I'm a strong swimmer. I've done open water swimming competitively in the past, and even now I train 3 days a week in a pool. I'm comfortable in deep open water in a way that most people aren't, and I say that not to brag, but because I want you to understand that what happened to me was not the panic of an inexperienced swimmer. It was not cramp. It was not my mind playing tricks. I swim out maybe 150 yards from shore. The lake bottom drops off fast here. Within 40 yards of shore, you're in 30 feet of water, and by where I am now, it's probably 60 or 70 feet down. The water is dark, green-black, visibility dropping off to nothing within 8 or 10 feet below the surface. I've always loved that about this lake. The depth, the sense of a whole cold, dark world suspended beneath you. Some people find it disturbing. I find it clarifying. I float for a while, face up, watching the sky go from pale blue to the harder blue of full morning. There's a hawk circling over the far tree line. The only sounds are the very small sounds of my own movement and the almost inaudible lap of water against the distant rocks. I am as relaxed as I ever get. I am thinking about nothing specific. I roll over to begin swimming back toward shore, and my hand closes around something. My right hand, the leading hand of my stroke, plunges forward and down through the water, and my fingers close on something that is not water. It is solid. It is the specific solid of living tissue, not wood, not rock, not debris. It has the resistance and the slight give of a human hand. I feel the bones beneath the skin, the knuckle ridges, the shape of the palm, and my fingers close around it the way your fingers close around another person's hand when they reach for you in the dark. I yank back hard. I pull my whole body backward in the water, kicking hard, and whatever I've grabbed does not come up with me. And this is the thing I need you to understand. This is the thing that I have turned over in my mind every single day for 3 weeks. It doesn't come up. It pulls down. There is a moment, half a second, maybe less, where my right hand is held, genuinely held, against a downward pull that is deliberate and strong, and I am yanking away from it with my whole body and the momentum of a kick, and for that half second, I am not moving. I am locked in place in 60 feet of water with something holding my hand from below, and then it releases. I surface fast. I'm 15 feet from where I was. I've moved that far in a pure burst of panic without realizing it. And I'm looking down through the water, and there is nothing. The green-black depth below me is empty and still and silent. There is no shape, no movement, no disturbance in the water. Whatever I touched has not stirred the water at all. There is no sediment cloud, no movement of pressure, nothing that would indicate that a large thing just passed through that space. I tread water, and I try to be rational. Lake debris, a submerged log, waterlogged and drifting in the current, shaped at one end in a way that felt like a hand. Fishing line with something caught on it. A piece of equipment fallen from a boat. A glove, a buoy somehow trapped below the surface. I go through every rational explanation I can generate while treading water in a lake in the early morning all by myself, and each one of them falls apart against the specific physical memory in my right hand of what I felt. The warmth of it. Lakes do not have warm debris floating up from 60 feet of cold spring-fed water. Whatever I touched was approximately body temperature. I swim back to shore. I do not look down at the water as I swim. I know that's irrational. I know that avoiding looking at the water is not going to change whatever is or isn't in it. But there are moments when the rational mind concedes to something older and deeper in you, and this is one of those moments. I swim with my face up and my eyes on the sky, and I reach the shore and I stand in the shallows and I look at my right hand. There is nothing on it. No mark. No abrasion. The skin is pale from the cold water, but otherwise normal. I flex my fingers and everything works perfectly. I feel a little foolish. I tell myself, lake debris. I've been swimming open water for 20 years, and I startled myself. That's all. I drive home. I eat dinner. I go to bed. I wake up at 3 in the morning with my right hand hurting. Not badly. A low aching pressure, like the hand has been gripped tight for a long time, the way your hand feels when you've been clenching it during sleep. I'm half asleep, so I don't think much about it. I shake the hand out, flex the fingers, put it under the covers. I fall back asleep. In the morning, I look at my hand in the bathroom mirror while I'm brushing my teeth, and I stop. There are marks on my right hand. 5 of them. On the back of the hand and wrapping slightly over the fingers. The precise oval pressure marks of fingertips. 5 of them. Spaced in a pattern that matches a hand gripping from below. Not bruises exactly. Not quite the blue-purple of bruising. More like the sustained redness of deep tissue pressure held for a long time. Like the marks of very tight blood pressure cuff leaves. They are arranged precisely. One at the base of each finger, one at the inside of the thumb, exactly where the pads of someone else's fingers would press if they were gripping my hand from the opposite side. And they are cold. I press the marks with my other hand, and the skin is noticeably cold. The specific cold of something refrigerated, nothing like the rest of my hand, nothing like any normal skin temperature. I run the hand under warm water. The marks don't change. I press them against my cheek. Cold, like touching a window in winter. This persists for 3 weeks. Every morning I check, and the marks are there. Every morning they are cold. They fade gradually over the 3 weeks, becoming lighter, less defined, the cold diminishing slightly each day. On day 22, they are gone entirely. I press every part of the back of my hand that morning, trying to find even a faint trace, and there is nothing. The skin is normal. The temperature is normal. Whatever it was, it is done. I have not been back to Reardon Lake. I've driven up once, to the trailhead, and I've sat in my car in the parking area for an hour, and then driven home without getting out. The lake was visible from the car, just barely, a blue-gray shape through the trees at the bottom of the slope. I sat and looked at it for an hour, and I thought about what is in that water at 60 feet in the cold dark. What has always been in that water? What has been in that water through all the years of my childhood swimming and every summer since? I thought about how many times I have floated in that lake in that exact spot, face up to the sky, completely exposed to whatever lies below. And then I started the car and I drove home, and I kept driving until the lake was behind me. I think the most frightening thing is not what touched me. The most frightening thing is that it let me go. Because something that can hold you still in deep water and chooses to release you has made a decision about you. It has considered you and determined that it doesn't want you yet. And the word yet is the one I can't stop turning over in my mind. Alone in my apartment at 3 in the morning, looking at my right hand in the dark, wondering when it's going to change its mind.